Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Sharyar's Voice. And it's been a while until because I was busy with exams and I couldn't hold on to a lot of guests or काफी मसले चल रहे थे. But today I have with me Jahanzeb Hussain. Jahanzeb, I know Jahanzeb from Twitter, the OG Pakistani Twitter space, and he was also the founding editor or the founder of the Prism desk at Dawn. जिससे मुझे Jahanzeb के बारे में पता चला था, and I started reading Prism pieces. And apart from that, as far as I know, he just returned from Paris after completing his master's in anthropology from an institute जिसका नाम मुझे नहीं आता because I really don't know a lot of French. But yes, let's begin. कैसे हैं आप Jahanzeb? How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you for having me.
How's the weather in Karachi? I hear it's just
Yeah, it's very hot, but it's not like it's any better in Europe right now. So they're also going through a heat wave. So wherever you are,
yeah, it's more or less like that. It's actually a bit better in the Netherlands because I don't know. I think I'm a bit in the north, so शायद उस वजह से. But yeah, generally we're just dealing with extreme temperatures.
yeah.
Just
No,
to
there's a heat wave in France as well. So
oh,
I was
okay.
missing France recently, but then realized that the weather is the same, so maybe it's not so bad.
Okay. But do you like Paris as a city though? Like you've spent some good time there. Like, do you think Paris
Yeah,
is
I was
bad?
there. This time I was there for 2 years doing my master's, as you said. I had been there before as well. I did a part of my undergrad when I was in Canada, also in Paris on exchange. I've been there before, so it's a city I know quite well, and I always enjoy my time whenever I'm there. So it's a good place for me.
I just went there for first time in my life in New Year's and like 6 months ago, and I felt like if you don't really know French, you can't really get around in that city. It's very hard. Like I felt very disconnected to the whole city because I didn't know French at all. So
Yeah, I suppose.
so I just wanna just refer back to you. Is your hometown Karachi? Because I'm just
Yeah, I was actually born here in Karachi, lived here, but then I moved to Canada for my high school and I did my undergrad from there as well. First in Montreal for a couple of years. Then I went to Simon Fraser University in Vancouver for my undergrad in public policy. That was a 5-year program, of which I did 1 year, 2 semesters on exchange in Paris. And then I returned to Pakistan in 2014, a few months after my graduation. And I was in Islamabad for a bit. I worked there, but then I didn't like it. I didn't like the work. I didn't like the city. And it was so expensive. That city is so expensive, man. It's
Islamabad
impossible.
is expensive. That's true.
So I was just having a hard time, and I just decided to return to Karachi to live at my parents' place once again after a very long time. And then I joined Dawn. That was in 2016 summer, beginning of June in 2016. So that's 6 years ago, pretty much a few weeks ago that I joined Dawn.
And you
Yeah.
left Dawn before before leaving for your master's in Paris.
Yeah. So I couldn't do Dawn and masters at the same time.
Yeah.
So I had to leave that, and that was in October 2019, 3.5 years later after I joined. So yeah, that was the end of my journey at Dawn.
But so the thing is that someone like me, so I'm just sharing a bit because I graduated from LUMS in 2020 and I was always into journalism, writing, research. I had my own blog and all of that. I was into that whole dream sort of a thing. But as soon as I graduated, it was COVID, I get it, but I got a couple of offers. I tried my best to get into Dawn, but I couldn't. But I got some good offers from other newspapers and everything. But I worked for a nation for a bit for the nation, yes. But the thing is that for anyone who's watching and who's actually doing journalism and who actually wants to do journalism, do you really think it's a viable career option in our country? Like, because I have given up on that whole idea कि मैं कोई पता नहीं, I'll become like the next Hamid Bean or a very famous, highly paid columnist or something like that. Like, I don't think so. That's gonna happen anytime, like
No, I
anymore.
think journalism in most countries is quite precarious. I think the standard everywhere is that you work freelance or you work on, short-term contracts for very less money, for very little money, and I think fixed term, like proper contracts, full-time work with good money and benefits I mean, the space for that has reduced over the years all over the world.
Yeah,
Not
and
only in Pakistan, I mean, freelance is absolutely impossible, I think, if you are writing for local papers. If you're writing internationally and you earn in dollars, then it might be worth more. But even then, there aren't that many people who have successfully done that.
yeah,
There
but
might be one or two. But journalism as a viable career in Pakistan, I mean, I would never like discourage anyone from going there because if someone had discouraged me, I would not have listened to them, and that's a good thing because you have to learn the ropes on your own.
yeah, makes sense.
But at the same time, I can tell you my experiences and what I've seen. And I think maybe listeners should decide on their own if they think that this is the right field for them to
Yeah,
join.
because
But at least, I mean, even if it's not viable in the long term, and I think at least for 3, 4, 5 years, it could be a good career option for you because you do certainly learn about it.
yeah, I feel like journalism, because not everyone's into journalism, right? I feel like there's a very unique, I don't know, I shouldn't use the word class or category, but the thing is that not everyone in their early 20s, let's say coming like studying abroad or going to Lum's IBA, wants to actually work for a desk at Dawn or The Nation or I don't know, Geo News English desk or something like that, because it's heavily underpaid. Sometimes you're not even paid at all, and then you don't get that, you really don't get that respect. Because I've not been into newsrooms much, but mera thoda bahut experience of going into newsrooms, and I've seen the atmosphere there and how their work ethic and stuff like that. So it's very I don't know, people are very deluded as ke like, because I'm doing a media degree here and मैं यहाँ पे किसी पाकिस्तानी I come across any Pakistani and they're like, okay, क्या आपने क्या हामिद मीर बनना है बड़े होके, मतलब आप डिग्री के बाद क्या करेंगे, आप काशिफ अब्बासी बन जाएंगे, हामिद मीर बन जाएंगे, and people think anchors are journalists, but I feel like that's not the case. They're just anchors. They're just sitting on that TV screen. It's very different than hardcore
Yeah,
journalism.
I think that's the big disservice that TV has done to Pakistani journalism. That people have come under the impression that, as you said, being an anchor, just just having an opinion on something on TV counts for journalism and intellectual work and research. But anyone who's gone to university, anyone who's done actual research knows that research is all about fieldwork,
Yeah.
and it's all about in-depth study of something. It's not about and it's based on facts and some sort of theory and something that also can be showed in public and be debated. But I think anyone who also watches Pakistani TV, Pakistani news channels, and talk shows knows that that's far
Yeah,
from the case.
that's
So I think you're right that I think it's a big disservice that journalism in Pakistan has gravitated so much around personalities. So there's Hamid Mir, and there's Najam Sethi, and then everyone has a little group, everyone has a little
yeah.
thing, and there are people who revolve around them, and cultish following,
Yeah.
or at least very sectarian sort of divisions,
Yeah.
and they also reflect their own position in society, Lahore based, Karachi based, what class,
Yeah.
Islamabad based, KP based or whatever. So I
That's
think
yeah.
that's the result. Personalities become so important when the institutions are weak. When the institutions are strong, personalities are not so dominant. For example, you can name Hamid Mir, but can you name anyone or that many people working in other countries who are such big names?
I don't know, like maybe like Christiana Manpur or like people like that, or I really don't know a lot of, yeah, the guy who does
Yeah,
Hard Talk, yeah, BBC Hard Talk. I'm not sure, but
I mean,
yeah,
yeah, I
it's all the
mean,
same.
I see personality dominant mediascape as one where institutions are weak to the point that people themselves become institutions, and that should not be the case. People are just people. They're journalists, editors, and only an institution should be an institution, which
Yeah,
means that if person X leaves their job, then that institution for which they were working continues to do the job that it's supposed to do. And
yeah, that makes sense.
so, I mean, and then the other thing that TV did that was harmful to journalism overall in Pakistan was that all of the money went to TV because of advertisement. Right, there was a boom,
Yeah,
which means that people who were working, people who would be earning 30,000 a month would be earning 3 million a month. Right, that's the famous example that's given of journalists. I wouldn't name him. That it was
I
working.
remember, yeah, I remember growing up, Hamid Beer तुझी 30 लाख रुपए कमाता है, उसको तो जियो ने पता नहीं, like things like that, right? That's what, like, you're right about the disservice aspect, because I like, for one of my courses I did a lot of research into how CNN like came out of somewhere like in the US mainstream media, and there's actually the business model thing. And I feel like our institutions in the early Musharraf era, they were getting a lot of money, dollars were coming in, there was a very countering war on terror narrative, Aman Ki Asha sort of thing was going on. A lot of money was being pumped into our media, and as soon as People's Party took over, it started drying up. And I think like in the middle of like towards the end of Nawaz Sharif's tenure, media really got into that crisis and still hasn't recovered from it. Like if you look at like some of our newspapers, and how heavily underpaid journalists are. We saw some journalists committing suicides and stuff like that.
Yeah,
But
the other thing is that you talk about Hamid Mir earning this much or that much. It's only Hamid Mir that's earning this much, but the rest of his staff is probably not earning that much, right?
Producers and
People who
cameramen
do
and stuff like
technical
that.
work and all those things don't earn that much money. So that's what I mean by the injustice of personality dominant media, where they not only attract all the eyeballs and the retweets, but also all the money goes to them and is not distributed fairly among the entire institution. So there's that, and also when TV started paying so much, traditional print media really suffered because print media just couldn't compete with the salaries. So traditional newspapers and magazines such as Newsline magazine, for example, which was a brilliant initiative that came out in the 1980s. I wrote about it as well. I'll send you the link, maybe you can put it in the show notes.
I think I've seen the piece. I've seen it on Twitter. I think I've seen it on
Twitter. Yeah. I wrote it for Himal after both Newsline and Herald magazine had shut down. And I explained the history of both is that Newsline, also Herald, but also especially Newsline, was, their staple was investigative journalism based on footwork, based on fieldwork. Based on not people sitting in front of a screen and just telling the world what to think. It was not drawing room uncles ending up on TV. So that's how I see a lot of TV media is just retired generals and
bureaucrats and judges, and
who just don't have the capacity, the intellectual capacity, nor the tools to be talking about the thing that they're talking about. Yet they have become the opinion makers. And I think that's the injustice of TV media in Pakistan, that it does not follow any sort of journalistic ethics that would counter opinion making turning into journalism and expertise.
Yeah, that makes sense. I just wanna first get back to your time at Dawn, and then we'll move on ahead. Like, I really want to ask about the appetite for English language content. When I say English language, I don't mean like matlab mango bars and pro Pakistani and all of that, but Dawn itself is an institution, right? Like someone like me, when I was in A levels or in university, I was like, yeah, okay, I'm gonna work at Dawn someday. Karachi ke unke office mein I have to work and something like that. But like itself, Dawn ki circulation, and if you look at like the circulation of English language newspapers in Pakistan, it's still not that much, right? Compared to our, like, what would I say, rivals or neighbors or whatever. India the appetite for English language content is increasing. In fact, I think I'm not sure if it's more than their mainstream Hindi content, but they do have a very successful appetite for English language content, jiski wajah se a lot of advertisers and, I don't know, producers and media moguls are more interested into English language content. But yahan pe I don't feel the same, because I don't know if it's the it's the education background of people, or if it's the socioeconomic class factor. But yeah, I really want to focus on the English language content scene in our industry, journalism industry in general.
Yeah, it's tricky because I think it reflects the general situation of the country, the general socioeconomic, educational situation of the country, where a newspaper like Dawn is only read by a certain group of people.
Yeah.
But I don't think that Dawn is necessarily the worst culprit in this. I think it attracts more criticism because it's a big name.
Yeah.
But I don't think Dawn is any better or worse than others when it comes to language media. But I mean, the other fact is that, you can have Urdu, but eventually Urdu is also going to have its limitations.
Yeah.
Because Urdu is also only known by people who have gone to school or who have it as the mother tongue.
Who can read
but
Urdu.
But only to read Urdu, especially.
Yeah.
But only 8% of the people, if the stats are right, have Urdu as their mother tongue. Right?
So ironic.
Which happens to be the national language. So
yeah.
I mean, I never take seriously this criticism that unless you're not in Urdu, you're not making a difference, because Urdu also has its limitations.
Yeah, that's kind of true.
And that's also a very sort of Pakistani nationalist, this bogus Pakistani nationalism of Urdu as national language.
Yeah, that's
tint to it that Urdu is a popular language, which I mean, so if you're talking about newspapers, talking about written content, and you need people who can write in it, you need people who can edit it, you need people who can read it. But that also has its limitations in the country.
Yeah.
How, because English language media, you can say, is consumed by people in Lahore, Karachi, Islamabad mostly, and some of the educated classes in Quetta or
Islamabad, and some smaller cities.
उससे बाहर अब उर्दू भी उससे कितनी बाहर जा सकती है?
Yeah.
It is also going to stay in urban centers where education level is high, so people can read it. So yeah, more people are going to read it. I'm not saying that Urdu and English are the same, or that there should not be content in Urdu. Actually, Dawn does have a website in Urdu, dawn.com, and Dawn's TV is also in Urdu. So it's not like Dawn does not have any operations in Urdu, right? So, but I think if you're talking about reaching a larger number of people, you would have to have a stronger publishing trend in Sindhi.
Yeah.
You need to have that in Balochi.
Pashto.
Punjabi, I don't know if uski script hai ya nahi. Kis script mein wo likhte hain?
Yeah, because I think that's the thing with Punjabi, right? I'm a Punjabi, and I actually came across an Indian here in the Netherlands who writes Punjabi in Gurmukhi, jo traditional Punjabi likhne ka style tha. But we write Punjabi in Urdu, which is, and we've because my whole family lives in Faisalabad, aur kisi ko school mein Punjabi nahi padhai gayi. So then how do you write in Punjabi? Because you know how to speak Punjabi, but how do you do that? Yeah, that's
Balochi ki script, I mean, and then Pashto, and then all the other languages that exist in the country.
Siraiki and
then you go to Gilgit-Baltistan, there are many more languages.
Yeah,
right? So if you're talking about that sort of impact, then that requires institutional capacity.
Yeah, that's.
I don't think you can single out Dawn as lacking institutional capacity.
Yeah.
When your entire education system doesn't have that capacity.
Yeah.
Right.
That makes sense.
I mean, our country's syllabus and curriculum does not have that breadth to include the linguistic diversity of this country.
Mm-hmm.
Forget that, it cannot even include the religious diversity of the country, which I suppose is a lot less than the linguistic one.
Yeah.
That's
true.
Right?
It's less than 1%.
Right? You cannot even include geographic or provincial diversity in your syllabus outside certain stereotypes of Sindhis in Sindhi gaps and all this.
Yeah, that
Right?
makes sense.
So if Dawn doesn't have that, it is a reflection of wider society. Sure, Dawn can do better, and you would say it should do better given the resources that it has, continues to have. It can improve its Urdu service. It should compete with BBC Urdu and Voice of America Urdu and Independent Urdu. Right? Those guys are doing a better job. I see better stories on BBC Urdu than Dawn Urdu. And all the people who are working for them were trained by Dawn. A lot of people that I know. But they have ended up working for Independent Urdu, Voice of America, BBC Urdu.
Because they're getting dollars.
Because they just get paid more.
Yeah, that's
more.
Natural, yeah.
They get paid more. Perhaps they're treated better. Maybe their working conditions are better. They work for a name that's international.
Yeah.
But Dawn never. I personally think that Dawn has not invested in that, and I think that's due to a lack of vision, or just due to inertia of its management, that they have not tried to compete in this arena at all, and have let their competitors steal the march on them. And I think a lot of criticism can be made for the English language coverage as well. Right? I think a lot of times I see better features published in NPR, better features published in New York Times, better reporting in New York Times, and better articles on the economy in Bloomberg, for example. Even Prophet, which is local.
I think Prophet is doing a good job. Prophet has really picked up since last year.
And then Al Jazeera sometimes does better work.
Yeah,
I just think that as a national institution, as such a big name, which has a bigger household name than any of the publications I named, should look at it as a failure of its failure to, given that all these organizations are doing better sometimes than them. They pay more. I think the working conditions are better. Journalists probably enjoy working for them more, and they just produce better content sometimes. Whereas all these people who are working for them should be working for Dawn. I think Dawn should have had the ambition to place itself as a premier news organization in the country, which is the first choice of every journalist who already is a journalist, who is training to become one, who wants to become one. But for a lot of people, I suppose now the aspiration is to write for a foreign publication.
Yeah.
Right, and perhaps not for Dawn, because Dawn just didn't have the capacity, and I think that's a big shame. That despite having the advantage that you had, you did not invest in it the way you should have had. And I think that also reflects the wider, reality of the country. We talk about PIA as this wonderful airline back in the day, where Emirates couldn't compete with it. We used to train the pilots of Air France. We were the first ones to do this, we were the first to do that. But you can't take those things for granted. If you want to maintain the status, you have to continuously compete and invest. And I don't think Dawn has done that, and it has. I think it has lost ground that it had, and furthermore, it has not gained new ground in areas that it should have had, such as, for example, better Urdu journalism, but also better journalism in other languages. Certainly Sindhi. You're headquartered in Karachi. You are in Sindh. Sindhi press is vibrant. Its script is far more developed than Urdu. Its literature is far richer and older than Urdu. Urdu is what, 400 years old, 600 years old?
Yeah. Sindhi is
like 2,000 years old.
Yeah.
You're telling me you have nothing to draw from it when you live. So then again, that also reflects a certain state of Pakistan. Pakistan historically has had a Muhajir bias, Urdu-speaking bias against Sindhis. And Dawn, what is Dawn? Dawn was a Muhajir paper. It was a pro Muslim League paper
Yeah,
in
Dawn
India.
was a product of the partition movement, right? A very
Dawn
yeah,
was the paper of the Muslim League.
yeah. It was a
It was a party paper.
Urdu speaking, educated liberal Muslim class coming up with its own newspaper. That kind
Was
of ended up
it
created the
was
country as well.
it was started as a pamphlet, if I'm not wrong, or at least was a paper of the All India Muslim League. Like
Yeah,
many parties, every party has a paper. Dawn was the party of the All India Muslim League,
yeah,
founded in Delhi, then moved to Karachi, and it only became an independent paper, if I'm not wrong, in the 80s.
yeah.
Before that it was a pro-Muslim League paper, extremely pro-Muhajir, extremely pro-Urdu speaking, full of prejudice against everybody
Yeah.
else. Pick up the
I just
editorial.
wanna yeah, I just wanna sorry to disturb. I just wanna come to another which I really wanted to talk about because you've lived in Europe like for better part, and I'm just here for like I've just been here for a year now, but I want to talk about that Urdu speaking Muhajir part as well because I by birth I'm a Punjabi. My whole family is a Punjabi, but I've grown up in Karachi, and I felt it. I remember when I was traveling across Europe and I went to, in fact, in Paris as well. What I felt is that the Pakistani diaspora here in Europe is predominantly Punjabi, if I'm not wrong. It's 90% Punjabi, like in Denmark, Spain, Paris, and everything. And initially, I used to introduce myself as from Karachi. Like you're in an Amsterdam Pakistani shop, you're like I'm from Karachi, and you used to get a very different response from the other person. And then, because I'm a Punjabi and I was born in, I started saying Faisalabad in Paris, Amsterdam, Berlin, and I got an entirely different. I got free coffee, discount on groceries and stuff like that, right? So that really amazed, and I've had this question in my mind because you've lived in Europe for that as well. Okay, even outside the geographical boundaries or ideological boundaries of Pakistan, you see that Muhajir, Punjabi, North India, South India, and Bengali sort of fault lines amongst brown people here as well, which was very fascinating for me because this is the first time for me being abroad, like living abroad. I've lived in Pakistan all my life. Yeah, I really want to talk about that. If you have to some like if you have something to say, but sorry, I just went on with that. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, those divides exist, and I suppose they exist in the diaspora as well. I mean, they do because I live in Canada as well. And I mean, the dominant population in this country is from Punjab, and it reflects the diaspora as well. Though I suppose depending on where you are, maybe if you go to the Gulf, it's more Pashtun.
Yeah.
If I'm not
In
wrong.
North America is more Karachi, like if I'm not wrong.
I'm not sure. I don't think I have the data for it, but I do realize. I mean, anecdotally, I would say that the diaspora in Canada is also predominantly Punjabi.
Yeah.
Just because they're a bigger chunk of the population. So yeah, I mean that exists. But going back to Dawn and regional languages, I would say that Dawn should really have invested in a Sindhi version of its website. I think they had opportunities to do so as well. And I think that would really have strengthens Dawn's position in the media landscape. I think it should really have. I mean, for example, New York Times has a Spanish version as well, right?
Yeah.
Many of the articles are at least published in Spanish.
But the thing is that let's suppose Dawn does that. Sorry, I'm cutting you off. But I feel like Dawn itself is a very, I don't know, a certain category reads Dawn, right? Like growing up in Pakistan, I know the kind of people I saw reading Dawn, right? Like in our school assembly, after Tilawat, there used to be a 5-minute snippet from Dawn, and some very fancy looking guy or girl with like a clean haircut had to read like the headline or something, right? Now imagine the same in Sindhi. And I know how class fault lines exist in Karachi or Lahore and Islamabad. I don't feel like Dawn would get the same from at least from the circles I know. Okay, chalo Dawn Sindhi mein aana shuru ho gaya hai because I'm not sure about it. I'm just like
you change your perception and you change. Listen, readership is what you create.
Yeah.
If you want to create a readership of upper class people sitting in their drawing rooms having morning tea brought to them by the servants.
Yeah, but isn't that the dominant culture of our country? Isn't that like, I don't know, the power circles, the powers that be, they still have that culture. Like,
I mean, it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
There's a lot more to the country than that. And I think you can access a far broader demographic simply, I think, by changing the language.
Yeah.
But even then, of course, class differences would remain. Of course, there's also Sindhi elite. You know,
Yeah.
सिंध में जो बेचारे गुलामी में जो खेतों में काम करते हैं वो तो नहीं पढ़ेंगे आपका सिंधी का अखबार क्लास तो उसमें भी रिफ्लेक्ट होगी but at least you can reach out to a broader number, a broader population. But we should not romanticize anything. That's why I say that you should not romanticize Urdu as the language of the people. It is not the language of the people. The thing is that written work in every society historically has been something that only the elite do, because to read and to write you need training. You don't need training to speak or to listen, but to read or to write literature. Historically, it has only been something that is done by the elite simply because you need training to do so. That is
true.
it.
Like
and you cannot get training, you don't have resources. So if you publish something in Sindhi or Balochi or whatever, उसमें भी उन्हीं का पढ़ा लिखा तबका ही पढ़ेगा.
That's true.
So don't romanticize saying that आप कोई इनकलाब ले आएंगे regional languages में चीजें शाया करें.
And I feel like it's so important because अगर हम India देख लें, like they have this, like I luckily have friends from different parts of India here, but they have, like, you have whole Telugu cinema, Telugu newspaper, then you have Malayalam, then you have, like, there was this whole conspiracy on Indian Twitter I was looking at the other day, that Hindi is not our national language. Some of their politicians said that, and people came onto the streets and they were like, "Bhai, aisa koi scene nahi hai. Hindi is actually not our. You cannot impose Hindi upon us, right? Hindi and Urdu, basically Hindi and Urdu collective. The collective term for Hindi and Urdu is, I think, Hindustani from like early 1700s. Or these regional languages have existed for thousands of years. Sindhi, Balochi, Pashto, and like Dari and all these languages, right? So I'm not sure how. I don't see it happening in Pakistan anytime soon, because like our whole structure and power circles are sort of centered around Urdu, nationalism, cricket, ISPR, and matlab wo hamara us tarah ka scene hai. But yeah, I just if you have more, do we have more time? Like,
Yeah.
Sure. I really want to move on to the photography bit because I've seen your pictures in Paris and I've been following you on Twitter. And recently, I was looking at your pictures, and I really want to focus on your experience in Paris for the last 2 years, because I'm not sure what was your time like, but the thing is that as a Pakistani or as a brown person living and studying in Paris in a very, which is supposed to be a very French elite class sort of a city, but I know for a fact, I've just been there once, that it's not like that at all, because Paris is just like, Paris is more than what you see in Emily in Paris, for anyone who has not been there yet. But I really want to reflect on your experience, because I went to some wonderful cafes in Paris and some wonderful places run by Pakistani people, and it was really fascinating for me because you don't find a lot of them in a city like Paris. So
yeah, I mean, the city of Paris is quite interesting. You should not romanticize it.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. I second that.
You shouldn't romanticize anything, whether that's Urdu or quote unquote regional languages.
Yeah.
Or life in Paris. I mean, there are harsh realities about everything in life. You learn that as you grow up. Paris is a diverse city, like every other big city. What I like about it is beautiful. Certain parts of it are extremely beautiful. I think it's unmatchable, the charm that it has at every time of the year, certain times of the day. I love it at night. You can walk around freely. You can take the train to anywhere you want. Nobody bothers you. There's a freedom. But also mixed with a lot of aesthetics. And I think the experience of it is quite beautiful, especially when you're coming from an ugly city like Karachi, where you have nothing. Right? So, I mean, it's not to compare, but I mean, different worlds in a way. But I mean, my experience has been positive. But what what you can criticize Paris for is how it has been, what's the word, gentrified. It's no longer the city of the working class. It's no longer the city of the popular classes, as we say in French. Because Paris historically had been the center of revolution. The French Revolution, the Paris Commune, all the other uprisings, the 1968 student uprising was all in Paris. It's because Paris had that working class sort of lower income, popular, intellectual sort of character, strong presence of the left, which has been totally removed over the years, to the point that no social uprising will exist in Paris anymore. In fact, it has become the opposite, that people come from outside of Paris to occupy Paris in protest, as it happened during the Yellow Vest movement, where every week and every Saturday, protesters from around the country, from all across France, would converge and descend on Paris to ransack the city.
Yeah, so wasn't there like indigenous support for that movement, like within the city of Paris, like during COVID or during the Yellow Vest?
Yeah, I mean, Paris. Then again, outskirts of Paris are very different. But that's the thing. Like, people have been pushed to the outskirts, and there's a constant struggle to find place within the city, and only if you have a lot of resources do you find it. And it's impossible now for people to have families and afford a place in Paris. It is absolutely impossible. You could be working, two people, parents, both the parents could be working, but if you have children, if you want bigger space for them, you have to move outside Paris.
You have to move to the suburbs, because it was my first time there, and I still remember I was there on the 31st of December, and I was living in, I'm not sure, Belleville, I suppose, I don't know how to pronounce it, and Belleville. I remember this area. Yeah, one of my Indian friend took me to this area. It's called Pigalle, I suppose. And I still cannot forget that moment. I saw two people, बनियान और शलवार में, और वो पश्तों में एक दूसरे को गालियां दे रहे थे, and they were fighting with each other on the street. And like, I've never been to Europe. This is my first time here. और मैंने वो moment देखा on 31st of December, and I was like, यार ये भी होता है पेरिस में, मतलब ये क्या हो रहा है यहाँ पे? Like, they were literally fighting with each other, and cops showed up. They kind of like tried to, like, I don't know, उन्होंने सुलह सफाई कराई or something like that. And those guys, for a second I thought I'm at Buns Road or somewhere, or कोई बन कबाब वाला scene चल रहा है वहाँ पे. And I was very fascinated, and probably because I'm very new here, but I really want to talk about this. I saw some working class Pakistani Indian people जो पेरिस में ऐसे ही रह रहे हैं जैसे, I don't know, probably Middle East में हमारी working class रहती है. And हमारी जो elite है, जो लोर म्यूजियम और आईफिल टावर के बाहर बड़ी अच्छी पिक्चर्स लेके वापस आ जाती है और फिर जैंडर्स में बैठ के डिस्कस कर रही होती है, but they don't know that this class also exists, right? जो बेचारे बनियान में बैठ के जलेबियां बना रहे हैं पेरिस में. So I'm not sure if you have had experience with them, but
yeah, I mean, so you're right to say jalebi. I mean, I don't know if they make jalebi, but a lot of the Pakistani diaspora, the Pakistani population in France is this sort of working class population, mostly working in the restaurant industry. So a lot of times you go to Paris and you go in the back kitchen. So the cleaning staff would be Pakistani, or like some of the cooks would be Pakistani. A lot of the Uber drivers and Deliveroo drivers delivering food are Pakistani. And people working in construction are Pakistani. So it's basically that class which is marginalized economically, socially, culturally, in every sort of way. So yeah, that's I think the wider experience of the Pakistani diaspora in France. Again, I think a lot of it Punjab based, maybe some KP.
But the thing is, I really want to ask, what's their status over there? Because I remember I bumped into some guy and he was from Gujarat, and as soon as he heard I'm from Faisalabad, because I was living in a hostel and मेरे पास कुछ चीजें नहीं थी, and he gave me from free, and I'm like, आप यहाँ पे कैसे आए? And he's like, बेटा मैं 88 में आया था, and मैं तब से यहाँ पर आज तक मतलब what 33 years, and he was an average early 40-year-old guy from Gujarat. Paris में वो एक दुकान चला रहा था, and I was like, मतलब आप कैसे यहाँ पर आए? अब तक पिछले 30 साल से आप क्या कर रहे हैं? He was like, I'm just doing what I'm doing right now. Like, and how do these guys actually end up here? मतलब, are they citizens? Do they, I don't know, शादी वाला scene होता है? What's? Because I'm really surprised.
I mean, I'm not sure what the legal situation of everybody is, but the fact that if you stay there for so long and if you have a shop, then you must have some sort of status, right? So they might not have full nationality because maybe they do. I'm not sure.
I think they might,
if they got it early, maybe they came on different status, some refugees, some whatever. Maybe they came. Some of them just end up illegally and then just end up getting regularized. So I haven't looked at the legal status of all these people, but what is for sure is that almost all of them are extremely marginalized because they just don't have the education and the language and the cultural capital to integrate into
I feel like
that's already very demanding.
Because if you look at, I don't know if you've looked at all these PTI ke jo protest ho rahe the all over the world, like in like fashion capitals in Paris and London and all of that, and a lot of people on Twitter were like, "Ye hamara diaspora hai," but they don't know कि ये जो Paris के जो I don't know Ralph Lauren पहन के protest कर रहे हैं, this is a very minor segment of the diaspora pop. The असल diaspora तो वही है जो बेचारा बनियान में कुछ बना रहा है या लड़ रहा है लोगों से या ट्रेन में धक्के खा रहे हैं. And that's the thing, right? That's what fascinates me, and I'm really into the whole diaspora scene. But yeah, that would be like going off topic. Coming back to the whole like journalism.
One thing I would say about diaspora is that majority of the Pakistani diaspora does not live in Europe and North America, but lives in the Gulf.
Exactly, right. And they live in the Gulf. They're driving taxis there. They're doing a lot of stuff there. And even the diaspora here, I feel like I remember. I'm not sure if you've been to that bookshop. Apparently it's the first English bookshop on continental Europe. It's right near the Louvre Museum. They had this thing outside that bookshop. I'm not remembering the name. It's in French or something. But I bumped into this Indian guy and I'm like, uncle, and I don't know, we were just talking for a bit and he's like, beta, dekho, इन लोगों को हमारी, इन लोगों मतलब bracket open French को हमारी ज़रूरत है. They have an aging population. ये बेचारे मर जाएंगे. And people from Pakistan and India are running this country. I'm like, okay, that sounds like a good argument, but let's just dissect it, right? Like, इनको आपकी ज़रूरत है या आपको इनकी ज़रूरत है to send euros and dollars back home, right? And I don't know. Whenever I come across diaspora, मेरे वो सारे ना वो journalism mind मेरा खुल जाता है and I start asking very weird questions to them. But yeah, it's you meet a lot of different sort of people in these countries, like.
Yeah. I mean, all these relationships at some level are mutually beneficial. So nobody's working for free. So,
Yeah, we're almost, I think we're close to the 1 hour mark, but I was just reading up on your Twitter and you were, I don't know if you're planning, like, are you going somewhere next or you're filing paperwork or someplace or what's your next plan? Like,
yeah, let's see. I've done a master's, PhD could be next.
Yeah,
so yeah, let's see.
Because
so
anyone who's watching this, जिन्होंने bachelor's कर लिया या I don't know Europe से somewhere master's भी कर लिया, now they're kind of कि अब क्या करें? We're back to Pakistan and probably like I just want to ask you this: कि would you would you want, like, if you get the opportunity, would you want to live in Europe or like let's say Paris or any other city for I don't know after graduating and living and working there, or you would rather prefer to like move somewhere else क्योंकि आपने वहाँ पे time गुजार लिया and you're probably like I don't know, let's go to Pakistan for a while or let's go somewhere else, like it's.
Yeah, no, I mean, often things are not under your control, so sometimes you just end up where you end up. But I think the principle should be that you should go wherever you are respected, where you will be able to do work that's at your level, where it will be fulfilling, where you will learn and progress and advance in whatever you do, and where you will be happy, where you feel like it's worth investing your time and effort in, where you feel safe physically, emotionally, and where you are just comfortable in your skin and you're happy. And that place could be anywhere. So wherever people find it, good for them.
Do you feel like Karachi can be that city for us, like, I don't know, sometime 5 years?
Personally, for me, it is not. But if for some people it is, then who am I to say anything? I think it's just up to the individual to know what's the right environment for them to be at their best, and that's it.
Just one more question, and then we'll close to a wrap up. Do you feel like Karachi made you? I'm not sure how long if you've lived in Karachi, but Karachi का जो एक पूरा एक vibe है, that's really different than Lahore, Islamabad, and all our like other cities. And do you feel like Karachi made you that tough to, I don't know, live alone in a city like Paris or maybe Canada? I would say Paris more because I could see that Paris is that sort of a city where you go from one area to another and suddenly there are like, I don't know, three dudes selling you drugs on the street, and then there's some weird looking person on the RER train जो आपके सामने बैठा है, and I don't know, मतलब did Karachi like, I don't know, just wanted your opinion on
I
it.
mean, these things depend on your background. I mean, I did not live a life where I had to tough it out in Karachi, I'll be honest. So, in fact, Karachi, I don't know if it ever prepared me for anything. But what prepared me for many things in my life is the fact that I left at an early age and lived on my own in many different places. And every place teaches you something. And it just accumulates. And Karachi in particular, honestly, I cannot say anything, but it would be wrong on my part to say that I had to tough it out in the city.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Compared to many of the people, life here was quite privileged. Of course, there are limitations to everything, and something to suffer here that you won't elsewhere. But I don't know if it made me tough. I know that it made me quite angry and annoyed and upset.
Yeah, Karachi does that to you. I feel like, yeah, I don't know. Like there were times when I was really frustrated with the city, but yeah, that's a topic for another. But coming on to the end, I'll just like to end it on this note. Anyone who's watching this and who's probably going for their masters this fall or next fall to, I don't know, somewhere in Europe or North America, and mainly in a creative field, because I know when brown people actually end up pursuing creative arts, उनको यही बोला जाता है कि you'll end up broke, right? जो मैं बहुत मुझे सुनने को बहुत मिलता है, because in my whole faculty there's no other brown person like here in the Netherlands. So yeah, any advices, anything that you would like to say to people who are watching this and who are probably leaving for their masters soon, masters, PhDs, or anything like?
I think you should just follow your heart, because it's not easy to know what's in your heart. And many times we know many times we think we know what we're doing, but that's not the case. But I think somewhere inside if you're doing something that's not truly yours. And sometimes we just don't have any choice but to avoid it and do what needs to be done. So in some cases, that's what you need to do in order to survive or move on, or just do whatever needs to be done. But if there ever comes a time when you really have to decide what you want to do, and somewhere you feel that what you're doing is not what you truly want, then maybe I hope that you will have the courage and the strength and the time to stop and really listen to yourself and follow that. And if you will always be happier if you do things based on your strength. And I think the true strength is doing something that really appeals to you. And I think you will. This does not necessarily mean that you will get material reward for it. It might not lead to the most flourishing career. It might lead to frustration and failure. It might lead to you ending up back where you were before. But it would be easy to live with things if you know that you did what you really wanted. Whereas if you did something that you did not really want and other people forced you, and you struggled and you faced hurdles that were hard for you to jump over and you couldn't, that's when you will really feel the pain. That you did not succeed and you were trying things that were not truly yours. If you have to fail, if you have to not make it, quote unquote, because we live in a world obsessed with making it, and making money, it will be easier for you to live with that if you follow the path that was truly yours. Whereas ending up in the same place following the path that was not yours. And even then, if you follow a path that was not yours and you quote unquote make it, you truly won't be happy. And it will show in one way or another. And you will feel the pain and regret of it despite all your success. So I think it's a noble thing to follow something in arts and something that's creative, because ultimately what's important is your own voice, and you would find to actualize it through any activity, whether that's journalism, whether that's painting, whether it's photography. This does not mean that the journey would be without pain or its failures and downfalls and everything. But it's just that it will be a lot easier for you to deal with life if you do something that you truly want. That's it.
That makes sense, and it was a pleasure having you, Jahanzeb. It was I think we've crossed the 1 hour mark, I guess. But yes, anyone who's watching, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do. And this will be available on all other streaming platforms. And yeah, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much, Jahanzeb. Thank you.
For having me. Good luck.
Bye.